All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Have a recurring, very special guest on tonight, Sammie Tercero. Sammie is a friend of mine from where I work and where she works. Hi, Sammie.
Hi. How are
You
you?
refer to Sammie all the time.
Yes, I like
This is
Sammie.
the first time I saw that was on here. I've known you for 3+ years. I've always called you Sam.
Yeah, I have
Sam
different
Alamadino.
aliases.
I can call you Sammie. I don't mind that.
Yeah, Sammie or Sam, whatever is easier for you. I feel like my full name is like way too long. Like there should never be more than 5 letters in somebody's name. Just hey kid is a good name, you know?
All right. That's cool. All right. So I sent you a link a few days ago about things that we wanted to talk about. It's kind of further discussion from the last time, which was like, what, 2-3 weeks ago or something? So,
Yes.
And this is more like kind of global type concerns and everything else. But like for the first one was like the depleting agricultural resources and modern day farming. The fact that you have some areas, some places out there, they'll take up like 100 to like, hundreds to thousands of acres of farmland for like one crop.
Yeah.
And monoculture is what that's called. Is not a great idea. Nature thrives on diversity. So to grow, this one crop on thousands of acres is not a great idea. And what happens is, and that is one part of the concern of the depletion of resources. But it's also another concern is that the global population is growing like hugely all the time. So you need more farmland and more monoculture and blah, blah, blah. So it just continues the problem further. Have you come across this before?
Not personally in my experience. I haven't been farming, but I do know like more so about this topic that like even to like have like burger production or like steak, the amount of water it takes to like feed all of these crop, like not only the crop aspect, but for like the living species of animals that we're consuming too. They're also using a lot of water and a lot of land, and a lot of the stuff isn't recyclable. And then of course there's disease. Like how do we manage like, the spread of like, like a mad cow disease or whatever is in like the actual soil. Like, so the way that you would like farm for just like one crop, like full of like here in Illinois, we crop, mainly corn. And that's what here in Iowa is good for corn, in Indiana, that's what we like to grow out here. That's what works best in this like clay soil. So it just differs from state to state, like, Florida, like oranges and other places too. But not only is it like important that you culture food in one area, but having to, carry out any sort of livestock too, that also contributes in our diets and stuff is also at stakes when you're farming vegetables or meat or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned water usage and like, in cattle and stuff like that's huge depletion of the water resource, which is becoming more and more scarce. I do know that like farmers across the globe access 70% of the fresh water supplies. That doesn't mean they use 70% of the water, but like out of 100% of the freshwater areas, they're connected to 70% of them. And they just use a massive amount of water because, you go through like a drought where it doesn't rain, man, you got to draw that water from somewhere. You have like, again, 1,000 acres of your crop dies. Right. Yeah. So it's a huge disadvantage that they have to do it that way. And the cost of fertilizers from 2021 to 2022, the cost of fertilizers, at least in America, went up 60%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So it's a massive financial burden on the farmers in America, at least. Not to mention that they probably shouldn't be using those fertilizers in the first place. But their acreages are so large, they kind of have to. You have better control with smaller areas of vegetable plants that you can use organic, like neem oil or whatever it may be, to take care of the pests and fertilizer and to amend the soil. Acreage that large, then you're going to have to use some of these things because otherwise, imagine spending, spraying like 1,000 acres with like, cow manure. You know how much money that would be?
Right.
It would be just, I don't have a number, but it's a huge amount, I'm sure.
Right.
Stuff like that. So yeah, the depletion of resources is a huge deal, and it's going to get, the global population just keeps going up and up and up and up and up.
And the same thing with the cows too, like what they feed them, because they're not feeding the cows what they should be eating most of the time. Like they're not these cows aren't prancing on a farm, like eating grass. Like, I mean, of course there are organic ones where there are specific guidelines where it's like cage free, not cage free. But a lot of the times, like these animals are just getting like whatever type of feed, whatever biotics or probiotics, antibiotics, anything that's not going to make the animal sick. And then the thing is, it's like, how do we use this, how do we use the cow manure to fertilize our plants if we don't know like what they're consuming? It'd be the same thing. Like I can't grow a peach tree in the middle of the street, like, or right by a car wash, because it's like all of that runoff, all of the salts, all of the chemicals, everything, it all ends up being intertwined in one. So it's like, you have to be very careful. But I don't know if there was like world peace or like world like hunger was solved, there would be a way to gather like all that cow poop and like put it in a field. And even then we wouldn't necessarily know like the pros and the cons it would serve to our environment. Like we release species of like mosquitoes to like kill off other types of mosquitoes, and we don't know what we released into the universe, like we just let it out there. But less mosquito bites for me sounds good, but each little bug and each little thing has its own like niche, or it has its own thing that needs to be done to help, like, the bats eat the mosquitoes, or right. Flies eat spiders, not flies, but you get what I'm saying. It all kind of works together. So yeah, definitely takes a lot of resources to farm.
Yeah. And then there's like the ethical, what's that?
Yeah. It takes like, ethics to farm properly.
Well, no, I was going to say the ethical aspect of how we treat animals too is another thing. Like you talked about how they're feeding cows like all this like crap and everything else. It's just a little fattened up for our sake. Yeah. And I like a good ribeye, don't get me wrong, but and a good juicy burger. But there's just these animals. You watch those documentaries on like slaughterhouses and stuff like that. Yeah, watch them.
They're sad. 3-legged chickens from McDonald's.
Forks over knives, I think, is one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nasty, dude. That's why I always like, try to promote like local organic farms. You got like a local organic like vegetable farm next to a cattle ranch, and then next to like a horse farm, because horse manure is really good for the soil too. Yeah. And there's on a local level you can start all working together and stuff. You don't have to transport stuff from California over to Illinois or vice versa, because that's just a ridiculously inefficient system.
It is.
So we'll see if that comes up ever. But like, okay, so another thing too. Hold on a second. A public disconnect from agriculture. I know that this is an important thing too, because like this ties into like a labor shortage for farmers, because we think of farming, and it's not entirely inaccurate, as like what old people do. What our grandparents did, and stuff like that. And I know the average age for farmers right now is about 60 years old. Yeah. That the younger generation, they're like, koosh, posh settings with their video games and everything else, are not interested in getting into that industry. Some are, but the numbers are very low. So there's a legitimate fear that we're going to like run out of farmers in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll force us to go local.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool, but hopefully not under unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, I know, like, half the world starves because now you can't grow food for them, even though it's not like great food, but yeah, you can't do it. Did you have anything else you want to say about that?
No, that was a very shocking thing that I had read in the article. I'm like, I did not really believe that. I know that like people like in my general like age range, like maybe like 30s or something, like they're like into farming and stuff. And it's cool that people like to garden, but I think it's something that can be like taught, like when you're little, you grow like a bean for like a science project, there's more ways to introduce it, and it's not as scary as it might seem to people. But the thing is, culture wise, like sometimes we can be a little lazy. Like we like to stay inside and not get sunburned, but
farming's hard.
It is hard work. You don't know if it's going to rain. You don't know if it's going to be a drought.
It's hard work, and I know there's kind of I want to call it a movement out there. I don't know if that's the right word, but there are people out there who think that we should start teaching kids in elementary school how to garden, not farm, but garden, how to grow your own plants, veggies, and otherwise. First of all, what kid doesn't like to play in the dirt? I think they would absolutely love that. And it's a good thing to learn, how to grow your own food. I think that's very, very, very positive thing.
It is. And I really think anybody can really do it. Like, it doesn't take much attentiveness. Like, you just throw water on it and call it a day. Like, obviously you're not going to sit there with the garden hose all day and hose it down, because then you would flood it. But at the same time, it's not hard to do. Like, anybody can do it. And it's just better that way. It's better for the bees. Like, I remember I I always love the bees, but they only live for so long, and to help them like pollinate, like one of my jobs, I would do like nozzles at the like the fountain machine, and you would see all the honeybees. They love the sweet sugar that comes from the machine, but those bees can definitely go outside and have real sugar from flowers and make things. But it's a little cycle of life too. So
circle of life. Yeah, exactly, for sure. And this also ties into the whole depletion of farm labor. Fear is the urbanization of rural areas, the urbanization and rural areas. So like you have these metropolises, cities, whatever else, which are all sorts of fun, and there's all sorts of things to do. So like kids who grew up on a farm are like, I want to move there. So you don't even have like the generational legacy of like your parents hand down the farm to the kids anymore, or to some that's happening, but a lot less, because the kids are like, no, wait, I want to go be like a banker in New York or a lawyer or something like that. And then, which decreases even more so the population of people who might have otherwise become farmers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And a lot of the farming too, it's like, it's passed down from generation after generations. Like this was like my dad's farm, and he's got 6 other farms, and all the farm areas, like even by lakes, are like, they're used for different things. You would grow different things, but to not have that, the motivation from like young people to want to farm. I mean, I don't blame them. I would not want to be in a field picking corn or anything. Really. I mean, I would. I actually really would. But at the same time, I understand the complete counter argument. Like, I don't want to get sunburned. Like, I don't want to be out there all day sweating. Like, I really understand.
It's tough. It's tough stuff for sure. And there's also the expansion just geographically of urban areas of cities. They just, in the suburbs, suburban sprawl, they call it. I know LA is a perfect example. I mean, it just went, it just became this monstrous area. I know that in Illinois, so Illinois is called the Prairie State. I don't know if I said this last time or not, but Illinois is called the Prairie State, right? It was at one time about 65% prairie. Do you know how much prairie land is left now in Illinois?
Oh, how much is left?
0.1%.
Oh my gosh, that is so sad. I completely believe it. Anytime I drive past an open field, I see so much trash, so much garbage, all of that stuff. I'm like, I pulled out a plant from my garden, and it was intertwined with a piece of like plastic. I don't know how the plastic got in my garden. It was probably from like years before. And like these plants, like they will find a way to grow. So it doesn't matter what's in the soil. But I mean, the plant was like growing around the plastic, and I pulled them out. I was like, whoa, like you really grew regardless of the conditions. But that's sad to not.
That's a massive difference.
That's nothing.
65.9% difference.
Even all the forest preserves, everybody always says, oh, save the trees, or, we need these. And I guess that's our takeaway, right? We pull trees out to make paper and whatnot, and then we hope to plant them. But at what point how fast are they actually growing back? I mean, and then of course, there's always the idea too. It's like, are you planting a weed in this area? Like, does it have the right conditions? Like, what effect does me planting this peach tree have on the rest of the environment? Like whatever natural flowers are naturally growing here, like, pollination into other plants, which, I mean, it's a good thing. We want to plant our own stuff, but we don't know where it's going to be carried to. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like a bird, eats something from a plant and flies across the state and goes to the bathroom, and all of a sudden, a forest grows. So, yeah. So another thing too about farming is soil erosion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like, have you ever heard of the Dust Bowl?
Yeah.
Back in the 1920s or teens, whatever it was. I think it was more out west. What happened was the people who didn't, went in and set up towns in that area and stuff, farms in that area, started aerating the soil by loosening the topsoil. Mm-hmm. Okay, which is which is something that's okay to do on a small scale, but they did it like over, again, hundreds to thousands of acres and miles and so on. Mm-hmm. Well, these winds picked up and just took all the topsoil because it was loose and put it into the air. Yeah. And the whole area became uninhabitable. Yeah. It was an absolute disaster, because they didn't know what they were doing. That's a type of soil erosion too. That's kind of like a top level, surface level soil erosion. But waterways can cause soil erosion. If you water your farm or your garden too much, you're going to loosen the soil. It's going to turn to mud, and it's just going to float away. You were talking about things like leaking out of different factories and stuff like that last time. Those chemicals can get in soil and erode it too, depending on what the intensity of the chemical, whatever it is. There's some nasty stuff that comes out of those factories sometimes.
Yeah, like the Teflon from the pans, whatever factories they have, all the birds in the area because they're flying above it, it ends up in their system too. And obviously the wildlife is affected, where these businesses are, whether it's plastic or styrofoam, and especially plastic. I cannot express enough how important it is to recycle, because so much clean water goes into farming, not organically farming, but farming food, livestock, and plastic. I think it was I can't remember. It was a very large percentage of our water goes to making clean plastic. It takes a lot of water to use clean plastic.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about
plastic water bottles. I'm thinking they're all good. No, I mean, probably more water in all those water bottles were needed to make the actual plastic.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. And they're finding microplastics in fish and animals.
Yeah, I think it's in all of our DNA at this point. From however many plastic water bottles we've consumed, we're part microplastic. But yes, the fish too. It's all degrading at its own level. Like I said, my plants will grow around whatever piece of plastic it found in the environment, but that serves to hungry animals in the sea. Whatever they're eating too. It's this little fish had a nibble of it, this other fish had a nibble of it, and he's digesting it, and he's making it into his own cells and whatnot, and he's got plastic in him, and then we're eating it. He's on a sushi table, I'm eating whatever kind of tuna. It's all a cycle of, if we can clean it up, it would be helpful, but we don't know the effects it has on our environment either, or us. We'll find out one day.
We'll find out one day.
One day, I'm sure.
Okay, so this talks about the soil erosion and some of the things you can do to help avoid this, especially on your smaller gardens, and cover cropping and conservation tillage. Do you know what those are?
The conservation cropping, when you're planting.
Cover cropping and then conservation tillage.
Oh yeah. Replanting different plants on top of each other. If you're growing potatoes one year, grow beans the next, the legumes and everything. Yeah.
There's that aspect of it. There's also another one. At the end of the season, some people around here will plant rye in their gardens, their vegetable gardens. And what it does is it keeps the soil strengthened, and it keeps some sort of amount of activity going during the winter months. So when the snow melts, everything doesn't just go. It's a very cool thing to do. I haven't, my client's garden, my mom's gardens are really small, so I don't need to do that. But if you have a bigger garden, that's something to think about. They do it at CLC's horticulture department. I know that because their gardens are really large. And in conservation tillage, I think this means this. Rototilling, we all grew up. I remember my dad and I would rototill the gardens. It was super macho, and everything else. But it turns out that was a totally bad idea, because what you're doing is you're tearing apart the microbial ecosystem in the soil and not allowing it to kind of remain intact.
Yeah.
So now what they do with smaller gardens, it's almost impossible to do with big gardens, is there's this thing called a broad fork. You ever seen those? They got the two hands, and they got the 3 or 4, what do they call those things on forks? Say teeth. That's not what
yes. They're
put it into the ground, and you just sort of pull it back, and it just sort of picks up the soil and therefore loosens it a bit without destroying the microbes in it.
Oh.
There are certain technological advancements for big farming where they can still use the tractor to till, and it does what the broad fork does on a smaller garden. Instead of just churning it up like a rototiller does. Because they're catching on to the fact that this is really bad for the soil.
Yeah. I think that even goes back to our discussion a few weeks ago, which was I remember I was thinking that all this grass in my garden was horrible for all my vegetables, and I don't need all this extra grass. How am I going to grow just peppers? And you actually need all of the rest of that soil too. To not pull everything up or actually till it, as you're saying, that would make a lot more sense on not to pull out those good, the good leaves that are, keeping all the water like to each part of the soil, or, wherever the sand lays in the soil, wherever you're growing, if it's in clay or sand or however you try and grow, that would make sense. So that's good that they're doing that, because we know how the soil works.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of science or knowledge of like agriculture and soil. When I was getting my horticulture certificate, we had one class on soil, 16 weeks about dirt. It was awesome, and that just scratched the surface. I mean, you can get a PhD in this stuff, not on soil, but on agriculture, and like focus on soil.
Really cool.
Because there's just a bajillion things going on in there.
Yeah.
Especially when you like start talking about the dynamics of the microbes and the nutrients and stuff like that. It's really interesting stuff. Okay, it's been a little over 20 minutes and we covered a lot as we normally do. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Because I'm just sort of drawing from the link I sent you.
I saw that. I wanted to say like how easy it is to like, start like your own organic garden. Like, you could grow in like a container, you can grow in a garden box, you can grow it on the side of your house. And then of course, whatever conditions there are, like don't grow it like where you're going to change the oil to your car, like common sense for the most part. Like don't put it in like your cigarette pile, like don't grow cucumbers in that and then ingest that. Like that's not necessarily safe or healthy, but I mean, I guess the same could be said for plastic floating around in the environment. We don't know what we're going to get, but just try and do it as safely as possible, because I mean, you can really grow or do a lot of things anywhere. So
yeah, absolutely. And
as a broad spectrum, I'm being pretty broad today right now. I apologize.
No, that's okay. We're not, it's
just fun. Yes.
But I also want to like reiterate, I think I've said this last time and perhaps the time before is two things that you can do that are unbelievably healthy for your soil, especially your vegetable garden. It would be effective in an ornamental garden as well, but like concerning your vegetables because they produce food, is at the end of a season, after you pulled everything out, lay leaf mulch over all of it. Leaf mulch is incredibly potent stuff. It will introduce all sorts of nutrients into the soil, especially carbon. That's what the good thing. Carbon's like a huge. Plants love carbon.
Yeah.
So that's a very powerful thing. And at the beginning of your season, lay compost. Try to get organic compost, so it doesn't have the microplastics and all that other crap in it. Most readily available, at least around here, is cow manure compost, which is fine.
Yeah.
Horse manure is pretty awesome stuff too, but for some reason, I don't think I've ever seen it. Like I have a friend who owns a horse ranch, and he's offered it to me, but then I gotta like put in my truck.
Yeah.
So I just buy the bags of cow manure, again, organic. I don't mean to, be biased at all, but Country Bumpkin has this 50-50 mix of organic compost, and it's magical. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's nuts how effective this stuff is. I love it. So leaf mulch at the end of the season, organic compost at the beginning of the season. It can be cow, horse, mushroom, chicken. I think cow and horse are the most potent, powerful, but some people would not agree with that. So those are two very easy things to do to make your gardens flourish.
Oh yeah. So sometimes when I weed my garden, I make like a weed tea. I know it's not like what you think. It's not like a marijuana weed tea, but all the nutrients that you're pulling up from the weeds that you don't want, like you can always put them in like water or a bucket and then let it sit there for a few days, and you'll see the water start to turn like a brown color, but that water will be full of nutrients, and you can also use that to water your garden. That's like one of the tricks that I've picked up over time, like how to not like dispose of because you don't want to replant the weeds, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to lay them down and hope that they don't, overtake my garden. But I mean, you can at least use whatever resources that we did from the ground, and you can use that in your garden as well. So that's important.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, nature is designed to recycle itself, to further itself. There's all sorts of things like that you can do, I'm sure. One thing, like I know, like in my client's vegetable garden right now, everything is so just like massive. Like the zucchini plant has taken over probably a third of the garden. It's one plant. And then the tomato plants they're obnoxiously large, and they're producing hundreds of tomatoes.
Yeah.
So there's weeds all about. There's purslane, and there's other things I don't even know what they're called. And I have to keep reminding my client that that's okay. because it's actually a testament to how fertile and healthy your soil is. And it's a veggie garden. We shouldn't care so much about the aesthetics as we would in like an ornamental garden, which is designed to be pretty.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not touching any of these. I can't even get in there, first of all, because it's like
knocking everything over.
It's like crazy. I mean, it's like a tiny little jungle. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's awesome.
Can you imagine picking your tomatoes in the jungle? That sounds so fun. Where are all the fun people at? They need to go.
They're right here. And remember, the definition of a weed is just an unwanted plant. That's all it means. A rose bush can be a weed if you don't want it there.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Roses are like the symbol of romance and love. I'm like, well, if you don't like it, it's a weed. Okay. Weed does not just mean like a hurtful, injurious plant for other plants. It doesn't mean that. You know, that's called an intrusive plant. Like you plant something that like takes over your garden and kills everything. That's bad. That's not the definition of a weed. So don't fear weeds, folks. Dandelions are beautiful and they can be eaten and drank, and they're healthy, and you can make salads and teas and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what everybody's hang up is on dandelions. They're gorgeous. So you know you got to kind of recondition how you think about these things. Well,
they're pretty. I think I'd have it in a tea. I don't think I would eat it in a bowl of salad. Maybe, I don't know. They would have to style it to my visual.
I don't know that I would eat a dandelion in a salad. I don't know. I guess I'm sure there's like a European chef that can make you like saute it with butter or something. I don't know. I mean, I'd try it.
You know, maybe if it was like coated in breadcrumbs and like a bunch of spices, that would really.
And hey, you know what else? Have a bird feeder in your house. You know, feed your birds. Feed the chipmunks and the squirrels, put those little like dried corn cobs they have out there. Yeah. Get just natural activity going in your area, because it's going to help with a lot of other stuff too. And it's just cool to watch. I have a bird feeder right outside my garage. I go out there. It's my little man cave. And I just watch, hundreds of birds come and feed. And it's just a wonderful thing to observe. Like sitting and watching nature is a very, very cool thing.
It is. And there's different types of birds that serve different purposes. Like some have seeds that they take from place to place. And you're like, how did I get this cool tree? And it's like, that bird brought it over here. Like even hummingbirds, like they're still pollinators too. So there's some good things that can come from, definitely allowing the nature and wildlife into your garden. It can help you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Sammie Tercero, for coming on. Let's talk Lake County. And we're going to go, we of course always have so much more to talk about. This isn't something that has like an ending to it. There's just, agriculture's massively complex.
Right. Next article we'll discuss.
Exactly. So I'll find some more links for us to look over, and we'll have you back on sometime soon. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Till next time, keep talking. All right. Hold on, Sammie.